Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Monday Night Live with John. Tonight we're going to talk about recovery training for the throws, and then I will be answering your questions as a part of the show. So I just want to get off to talk about recovery for throws training, and it's we train a lot when we're training. When we're training weekly and or daily and weekly and monthly, month after month, and we're doing the same types of exercises over and over again, like we're working on the same kind of drills, the body needs um, recovery built into the training. So of course we need to be practicing our technique and working on our all that goes into working on technique. We need to be working on our strength, getting stronger, getting faster, because those things help us throw farther. And we also need to work on or have specific recovery included in your training. Now, I will say probably the more intense your training gets, the higher level of training you complete, the more important the recovery becomes. And also with that, probably the older you get, the more important it comes. And so when it comes to, like, if you're a middle school thrower and you are or in high school and throwing, you're still kind of new to it, some of these concepts may not be as vital to keep you going as it is for maybe someone who's training higher, at a higher level in high school or in the college collegiate system, third or fourth year in that. And again, most importantly, if you are training professionally or as a master's athlete, that's where this really comes in. One of the reason I want to bring this up and teach this is because so I'm 34, and when in 2011 I was 24 and I set my PR through 211 feet. And then in 2012 I competed at the Olympic trials. And then for 3 years I took a break, and I started training again a little bit in 2015, a little bit harder in 2016, but then I've been training consistently and good since 2018. And over these last couple of years, as I've trained over 2018, 2019, and now 2020, one of the things that's held me back the most is little injuries that have just show up from time to time. For me specifically in my shoulder and traps, some in my lower abs, and then in my hips and my lower back. Those are and even my knees. Those are the areas that give me the most trouble. And I used to think that, so I say I'd be training, and then let's say I was doing back squats, and even if the workout itself went fine, the days, like 3 days following that workout, I would be really, my back would be really sore, maybe my knees would be really sore, and I really would have trouble training for those few days after that. And I thought maybe it's because I'm getting older, or maybe because I have an injury of some kind. That's kind of the background of why I'm a little bit more interested in this topic. Because I would say maybe in college, in my early professional throwing, I'm not sure I really could. I knew it was important, and I did some foam rolling, but it wasn't vital to my training. But now, again, I'm 34 years old, and I'm trying to train at a high level. My recovery training is vital. If I don't have it, then I don't complete good training. And in fact, I kind of go backwards in progress. And so about a year ago, it was one of those days where I had my back was hurting, and it was hurting enough where it was really interfering with my training. And I was working with my good friend Parker, and he is a recovery specialist. And anyways, we were talking about what I was feeling, what I was hurting, and he kind of put me through some tests to figure out where some of that pain was coming from. And what it boils down to, we don't have to go into all that, is I had weak muscles and I had tight muscles. And it was that combination that was giving me so much pain. So anyways, he put me through gave me some exercises to specifically work on my weak muscles and my tight muscles. And then he also used a massage gun as part of the therapy. And this sounds crazy, but we did that for 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks, I think it was 2 or 3 times a week. I did the exercises, and once a week, real deep tissue massage and using that massage gun. And literally about 15 years of back pain seemed to dissolve away in 2 weeks. And I was blown away because I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I've been through all of this pain for nothing, but sort of that's what it was. Now, I will say we also had some major knots in my traps, especially my left one, and I wasn't able to bench press. And so it's kind of funny how that's connected. That took a little bit longer to get rid of because there was some real trauma in that muscle, but in time it did get better. So where I'm going with this is, so that was a year ago. I've been working with Parker, but then since then I've done the exercises he's given me, but then I also have been using the massage gun. So I have this massage gun. It's an Opov M3 Pro massage gun, and the reason I bring it up is because this tool specifically saved my throwing. And so if you want to learn a little bit more, I just wrote a blog article about this. You can find it on my website. The link is in the description of this video. The blog that goes a little bit more in detail of the story I was telling about. But what I want to say is the massage gun, it has become an important piece of my training because, so essentially, say you have a muscle and it's really tight, or you have a knot in it, which is not uncommon if you're training at all, and if you're training a lot, especially when you're using the same muscles over and over again. What I found is, prior to the workout, if I spend 10 minutes using the massage gun, especially on my lower back and my hips, and then my shoulder muscles and my traps, that instantly loosens me up and warms me up and allows me to complete better training. The other thing I've noticed is using this consistently, how do I say that? Just over the course of a week and over a month, I recover faster because I'm paying attention. I'm working on those tight muscles. And I guess to go back to what I was originally saying, it's adding in a recovery protocol or specific recovery training that is what is saving my throwing. And the massage gun is a piece of that story. The other piece of that is a handful of exercises that specifically for me target my weak muscles and target my tight muscles, or the muscles that tend to give me issues. So for me, it's working on my glutes and my quads and my IT band, all those muscles there, and then also my traps and my shoulders. If I keep those strong and flexible, then I can train at a high level. And that's the point here. What can you do to train better, to train smarter? Just so you know, we're gonna, about 5 minutes, I'm gonna start fielding some questions, maybe a little sooner, but we're gonna start fielding some questions. So if you have a question, I wanna answer yours, go ahead and place that in the comments to the next to this video. And we'll be reaching those comments here in a second. Back to the massage gun. This company, Opov, who makes this brand of massage gun, I've partnered with them, and they have played a really big role in helping me create content. And I am now an affiliate of Opov, and which means if you are interested in getting a massage gun yourself, if you buy them through the link in the description, you can get $40 off a massage gun. That's a pretty good deal. I think that's around 20% off. So in the description of this video, there's a link to this massage gun. It's $40 off. If you train a lot, or if you train hard, or if you're a master's thrower, this will seriously add value to your training. If you want to learn a little bit more about it, again, go read my blog about this tool and about training. You can find a link in the description of that too. Also, one more thing before we start fielding some questions. I have put out a new line of merch. This shirt is one of those things, and this mug. Underneath this video, you will see merch bar, and you'll see some of the items I have. I'd appreciate if you check that out and you buy something, because that supports me, helps me produce the throws content on YouTube, and plus it's really cool stuff. All right, so we got a question from Robert from Thailand. How you doing, man? Question is, how does weekly frequency of training influence throwing? I was thinking of 3 to 4 throw, then rest. 3 to 4 days, then rest, repeat cycle. So frequency of training influence throwing. So that's a really good question. I think where you're going with that is maybe how often do you need to train, or what's the ideal amount of training? And so what he's getting at is the underlying concept that you have to have both training and rest, right? So when you train, when you throw, when you're doing conditioning or lifting, you're working your nervous system, you're tearing your muscles down. When you rest, those muscles rebuild, they heal, and also your nervous system refreshes. I don't know the exact term there, but that's a good way to put it. I find that throwing 1 or 2 days in a row, maybe even 3 days in a row, is useful, because when you're throwing day after day after day, that allows your, like, in that short amount of time, it allows you to learn from the previous day. And so you can kind of connect those 3 days of throwing, or those 2 days of throwing. It's kind of one group, and you learn a lot. And then you take a rest away from it, and then you go back and do it. So I would say a general, like right now for me, I'm 34, approaching that master's level of throwing, and I like to throw two days, then 1 day off, 2 days, and then 2 days off. So it's 2, 1, 2, 2. And so essentially it's a throwing day, and maybe it's a throwing and lifting, or just throwing. So, but it's throw and lift, rest, throw and lift, rest. And I found that is a good, that works for me, and it works for my schedule. Now for you, you got to find out what's your lifestyle like, where, what fits in your schedule, like how much do you work, or are you in school, what are your classes like? And so you can, there is no exact right answer. It's where do you get a good return on that investment, right? The investment of putting that time in. And so if you're going to train 3 or 4 days, then rest, that works. I would just say if you're going to throw 3 or 4 days in a row, then I would take 2 days rest, and then you could repeat that, because that's important. That seems to work really good. All right, another question here. Tony says, hey, so how you doing, Tony? And then body results. Any thoughts on training? Pushing a med ball attached to the ceiling via a rope for shot to allow overload, like Bond or Chuck has used. Yeah, I think so. So I think if I know this right, if I hear you right, you've got a med ball hanging from the ceiling that's tied to a rope. So anything that you can do that you can make a strength exercise that simulates the throwing movement, anytime you do that, that's good, and that's there's a place for that. Where throws training can get boring is if you're just doing the same thing over and over again. Although there's a time and place for that, I'm always for creating. And I would say there's an infinite amount of specific training ideas. So that's a great idea. When you consider specific exercises, you just want to periodize it. So add it into your training plan like you would any other exercise. So let's say this exercise is really great, and it's hanging there, and you can really push on it. You can have a heavy ball. That's great. Do that twice a week. You don't need to do that for every session, 200 throws every session. So that's a good idea. Okay, another question here from Tony. I'm a former decathlete that started training again, still working out how to get a good rest schedule for the different phases of training. Okay, so if I understand you right, so different phases of training. Let's just say, and you can, if I'm not quite right here, what you said something else. I'm on 2 days on. So you said 2 days on, rest, 3 days on, rest. So go back to what I said a couple minutes ago. I think I tend to use the 2-1-2-2. So 2 on, 1 off, 2 on, 2 off. I like that. That's not much different than what you're saying here with having 2 on, 2-1, 3-1. So that just depends. If you feel like you're able that last day of the week, if that one day of rest is good for you, then that's totally fine. It probably depends on how heavy or how intense your training is. I mean, you're alternating heavy throws and light throwing back and forth. I think that's fantastic. I do the same thing. And so for me, if I'm going to do 2-1, 2-3, maybe you do day one, you're throwing heavy implements and you're focusing on that front half of the ring where you're working on stand throws and the drills around the stand throws and working on pushing the implement. And then when you have the light days, spend more time in the back of the ring, so of the full movement. So if you're rotating in discus or shot put, or even if you're gliding, you're going to be doing more of that full movement with the light discus. I think that's great because when it comes to training, and this is a piece of that, the rest idea is you've got to add variety. The variety has to be a part of your training. That's what your nervous system needs to stay fresh and to stay in the game, is kind of changing up the stimulus, because the technique you're doing never changes. You're always thinking the same thing. So to add variety, you've got to add in a different stimulus, which is heavy or light, or even changing up the throwing event for a day. All right, I got a couple more here. I'm a college thrower. How often should I use the gym? Okay, Miles, I would be in the gym. Your goal would be to be in the gym 4 days a week. So general rule of thumb is you want to hit each body part or each type of training twice a week. So let's just make it super simple. You have bench press, you've got squats, and you have deadlift, right? Let's say those are your main three. You need to be hitting each of those in some way twice a week. And so a very common routine would be lower body, upper body, lower body, upper body. And if I were to do it that way, let's just say on your lower body day, maybe you're doing a squat, and then the second lower body day is a deadlift, or maybe it's bench press and then incline bench press, or dumbbell bench and then bench, some like that. Really, as long as when you're looking at your training, you're going to hit each thing twice a week, then you're going to be able to make progress. Now, I will say, if 4 days a week is our goal, and you want to get to that, typically when I'm starting somebody on a training program, we always start at 2 days a week, and we do 2 days a week, full body each day. So let's just say we're doing Olympic lifts and a lower body and an upper body. It's programmed. Maybe we'll do it Monday and Thursday, or Tuesday and Friday. Then I go from 2 days a week to 3 days a week. Then from 3 days a week to 4 days a week. I typically don't do more than 4 because we're throwers, and we need to save and conserve some of our energy to learning technique, because technique is the number one thing that you can do to help yourself throw farther faster, because positions create distance. And so that's a pretty good split. Shoot for 4 days a week. So what would that look like? I guess over a period of time. I tend to build my programs, if I'm building programs for people, 1 month at a time. So month 1 would be 2 days a week, month 2 would be 3 days a week, and month 4 would be 4 days a week. I'd probably hold out 4 days a week for 2 or 3 months, and then I may make a change and go back down to 2 or 3 days a week. Again, we'll always need to sneak in variety when we're thinking about training, because that's what adds life to the throwing training. Awesome. Okay, is there anybody else with questions right now? I see some things. I'll just shout out to Running Shoes, to Miles, to Tony. I appreciate you guys being on this live stream. One of my goals is to provide creative, maybe entertaining, but ways to provide discus and shot put training information. So I'm glad you guys are here. Hope this was useful. Last chance if you want to throw out any questions. One more thing is if you're interested in a massage gun, which you should be, you should check it out, and you can go to the link in my description to check this out, or to get $40 off your Oppo massage gun. Hey, you've got another question. So should I throw a 4.5K or a 7K in training? What is your competition weight? So if I'm just gonna say what is your competition weight? One more thing though, until you answer that, you should probably throw both, because it is good to throw lightweight and it's good to throw heavy. So when I'm throwing heavy implements, that's where I'm working on specific strength. That's where I am working on how to push the implement with force. And when I'm doing light implements, light training, that's when I'm working on the back of the ring, the technique side, rhythm side. So they both are very, very valuable. Okay, any value in having high school kids throw heavy and or lot implements during season? I would say for the most part, no. As a high schooler, pretty much across the board, you're still in the phase of learning technique, and that should consume most of your practice. So I will say, if you are throwing 4 or 5 or 6 days a week, which I know some high schoolers do, yes, I would add in some heavy training. But if you're only throwing 3 times a week as a high schooler, stick with the competition weight. That is because it'd be easier to focus on specific technique. Well, here's another question. This is a good one. If I think I understand it right, 3 weeks to my competition. So what should I focus on leading up to the competition? There's no one right answer for that. So most of us, well, across the board, if you've got a team of people, some people are going to respond to some training and other people won't, and vice versa. So in my years of coaching, I know some people who throw farther when they're lifting super heavy weight, where you think like, dude, you shouldn't be doing that. And then they go and PR the next week. And then I have some people, and then those same people, let's just say you back off and you go a little bit lighter. They're a little bit fresher. Then they go to compete and they have no feeling, and then they don't throw really well. And so there's this contrast between people. And this is where it's specific to the individual. This is where you learn yourself over the course of time. But a general rule of thumb is peaking happens when you reduce volume. So peaking happens when you reduce volume. So if you think about all of your training, you have, let's just say you're lifting 4 days a week and you're throwing 4 days a week. You essentially have 8 sessions. You may have 8 to 10 sessions a week. What you want to do to peak as you lead up to a meet or a competition season is you want to gradually reduce your total volume of training. And so some of that's going to be reducing your weightlifting. Some of it's going to be reducing how many throws you're taking per session. But it's that general reduction of training volume that props you up to throw farther. Now, come to the specific details, like I was saying earlier, you may still need to lift really heavy. Just don't lift as much or as often. So still hit those high weights if that's what you respond to. And other people, again, they're going to respond to being a little bit more fresh. But that's where. But again, just the general reduction of volume is how you want to prepare for competition season. All right, here's a question from my man Dustin. Where can I get the American Discus shirt? I want to order one for Christmas. Do you have other items? Yeah, so you can get this shirt here, what I'm wearing, the American Discus thrower shirt, on my Teespring store. So underneath this video, there is a merch bar, and you can find the shirt there. You can also go to my Teespring store, which is, again, the links in the description. I have shirts, and I have this really cool mug, which is good for coffee or water or whatever you drink. Make great Christmas presents. Here we go. How would you mix lifting in with throwing for high schoolers that have 4 1.75-hour sessions and 1 meet a week? All right, so if you're talking about how to plan the training in season, that's what this looks like. For a high schooler, personally, I would lift 2 times a week, and I would throw all 4 days a week. So 2 lifting a week and 4 throwing a week. And the lifting I would do, the days you do that, should be 45 minutes to an hour max, right? You should be able to do the whole body workout in that amount of time, no longer. You don't want to be wasting any time. You don't want to be wasting more time than you need to on the lifting. Yes, it's important and it helps you get conditioned and get stronger, but for a high schooler, it is all about getting the technique down and mastering the technique. And so then I would spend, you have 2 days a week, hour and 45 minutes. That should include your warm-up, get a lot of throwing in, and then again 2 days a week with the lifting. So here's a question. I'm a vegetarian. Any tips for my diet? Now I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not schooled in diet, but I have been a competing athlete for a couple decades and have ate a lot of food, if that makes sense. Now, I guess it depends on what you want, but there are several really high quality plant-based proteins. And so, I mean, the thing you need to, when you're training, you have to consider what you take in so that you can nourish your muscles. And if you're not taking in enough protein and enough fat, then you're going to struggle on the recovery side. And you've got to recover if you're going to train hard. So having a high intake of protein, how much, it just depends individually. I can't give a actual amount, but you need it, right? You need fats. And so look at the fruits and vegetables that are higher in that. Now, one thing, so I have a son who has a dairy allergy, and so I take protein supplement, but I take a plant-based protein supplement because try not to have, a lot of the protein supplements are milk-based, right? They're made out of whey. And I have been doing that for probably 2 years, plant-based protein, and it has been phenomenal. I feel like I'm actually leaner, stronger, so I think you just make sure you get enough protein and fat in your diet, and there are some good supplements. It's Garden of Life, that's the brand, and it's phenomenal. It's really good. Okay, so that's it for today. I appreciate you staying around for the live show and asking some questions. This was really fun. You guys are doing great, and I will see you next week on my live show.